Hi, everyone. Sorry, we're running a little bit behind here. Thanks for being here tonight with us. Right now, we have Ann Sampson and David Sandlin with us. We are currently waiting for John Kofelt to join the call. He's having some technical difficulties right now. So while we wait on him, again, welcome everyone for being here. I'm going to play Marianne Sampson's video that we made for her. She has 3 books that are in the show in Dove Gallery right now. Nice work if you can get it up until December. So I'm going to play her video first, and then if we're still waiting on John, I will play David's as well. So just bear with us. If you guys want to say hi, you're welcome to. I'm going to share my screen here soon.
Hi again.
I did that placemat for a show in Birmingham.
What was that? I'm sorry.
I did the Land of Thousand Beers placemat for a show in Birmingham, Space 111.
Okay.
Yes, that's what that's from.
Yep.
And I think Ann gave me several of these.
Yep.
And I've just given Pam one.
Good, thanks.
I had saved them. And I went in one of my file drawers and oh, this is great.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna share the video now. Well, I say I'm gonna share it.
There it is.
Hi everyone, and welcome to A Look Inside. In this video series, we will take you through a page-by-page look inside a selection of art books from the Wiregrass Museum of Art's exhibition, Nice Work If You Can Get It. In this video, we will explore 3 unique books by the artist Marianne Sampson. Untitled. Untitled was made in 1995. It is a unique, movable book, more popularly known as a pop-up book. Sampson created the inside pop-up portion in the shape of a proscenium arch, or stage, with caricatures illustrated within the stage structure. Sampson also connects the stage to be barn-like. The characters may be seen as puppets or marionettes, and although the characters could be perceived as comical, grotesque, or demented, Sampson does not create to shock or horrify. She is simply nodding to the theater and to the theatrical, leaving it to the viewer to form their own context and notions of messaging and meaning. Untitled is made of hardboard and color pencil on paper. Rejoice. Rejoice was created in 1998. It is a codex-style book encased in a small box. The base of the box is lined with astroturf, and the codex book is bound and can be removed from the box. Each page is filled with illustrated faces and stage makeup. Sampson says the figures are those of traditional Japanese kabuki theater, wearing elaborate kamidori makeup. Sampson is drawn to the stage and often references the theater and opera in her work. In Rejoice, the characters can be recognized as singing or rejoicing on each page. When speaking of her process, Sampson says she has an idea and moves through the idea page by page. Aria. The word aria is Italian. In music, an aria is a self-contained piece for one voice, with or without musical accompaniment, normally part of a larger work. The typical context for arias is opera, but vocal arias also feature in oratorios and cantatas.
The term is originally used to refer to any expressive melody, usually but not always performed by a singer. Aria was created in 1995. It is a codex book with a soft cover. When flipping through the book, it appears to be one singer singing in a stop-motion-like way. As we have found, Ann Sampson is drawn to the opera and to the theater, as this is a repeated theme we see in her work. Ann Sampson is a book artist living and working in North Alabama. She specializes in miniature and broadside books. Sampson received her BA in Spanish and Art from Samford University and her MFA in Book Arts from the University of Alabama. She explores the book as a means of expressing visual ideas that stem from recollections of personal events and experiences that have derived from living in her rural environment of Alabama. Her later books have included works by James Seay Brown, Brannan Walker, the poet laureate of Alabama, and Jeff Weddle. She continues to work on unique books as she has throughout her entire career. Her works have been exhibited and collected internationally, and she's an active member of the Guild of Bookworkers. She is the founder of One Eye Opera Company, which publishes letterpress books, custom bookbinds, and prints unique edition books.
Okay. So I guess we're still waiting on John, but do you want to talk a little bit, Marianne? Do you want to introduce yourself and maybe talk a little bit about that book or any others that you have prepared?
They're a long time ago from now. I was so surprised to first see them on. I hadn't seen them in years and didn't realize that Paul Barrett, I think, was the owner of them. They had long ago disappeared from my possession. I'm veering a little bit toward abstraction now, just because I want to experiment with other lines and ways of making marks. So I started about a month ago working with coal wax and oil medium, and it has potential. I don't see it even as covers for books, but I just felt like I needed to and wanted to work on something different. I had tried encaustics a few years ago, probably going to do some more of those. I just like the look of them, and who knows how far they'll go. I don't have to do books forever. But I'm still making books, just some blank books to do as sketchbooks. I remember now when I saw that barn. I had just moved up here and had built a barn, and it has become rather famous because it's painted black, and it was 3 stories high. It received some damage during the tornado of 2011, but it got we found some metal clad material that we didn't have to paint, and so we repaired it with that. And it has stained glass windows in it from a church in Jacksonville, Alabama. So it's a very dramatic barn, but I don't get up there much anymore. I have so many other places that I have to look after now that I'm alone. But it was the genesis of the stage in that particular book, and there were other pieces that I did at that same time, featuring a barn as the stage for the book. You want me to talk about this? Okay. One of the books you feature now is Sunday Baseball, and I found this wonderful box at TJ Maxx, and I like to find wonderful things because it stimulates something. And the book inside that I made is made with, this is a painted exterior with some kind of exotic skin, maybe a snake, maybe a lizard, I don't know what. I have a box of exotic skins, just little pieces that were owned by somebody else and given to me. And so I make the best use I can of them. Inside is the whole, its own Reeves BFK, which is one of my favorite papers. It's soft and spongy. It takes pencils and drawings. It's just wonderful. This is the tan version, and I've been recently drawing on Reeves BFK, but they're cutouts and strings. The string, that is why I called it Sunday baseball. It's the stitching around a baseball was very important in its development as a athletic thing. Anyhow, this is how this catches the shadows. So this is pretty typical of the way I work. It's spontaneous. I don't have a plan once I start. I cut out the pages that I will need and how thick I want the book, the size of it. And then I go from there. I like this multi-layering of books. Do you want me to talk about the other book I brought, the letterpress, which is one of the things?
I want to ask David. I want to just pull David into the conversation.
Okay.
But, do you want me to show the images that you sent, or would you like me to show Aging Innocence?
Either one.
Okay, I'm gonna show the images that you sent. Again, I need to share my screen, but in the meantime, tell the audience about yourself.
First, I'll say I really enjoyed the playfulness of your books, Marianne. Really fun.
Thank you.
So my name is David Sandlin, painter, printmaker, bookmaker, living in New York. Grew up in Belfast, Alabama, Belfast, Northern Ireland, and moved to Alabama with my parents when I was 15 to Hansville, just outside of Cullman. And then eventually moved to Birmingham, went to UAB, then moved to New York. Been there ever since 1980. And just end up printmaking is at the core of what I do. So just, I think in prints and color, that's how I got into color. I studied with John Dillon at UAB. So he was like the one that turned me on to printmaking, litho, and silkscreen. And the books I have in the show at Wiregrass is a Rezo book. I mostly do silkscreen. What I say is silkscreen for quality, Rezo for quantity, because I can sell them cheaper.
Yeah.
And it has a silkscreen cover. And the slides I sent slides of 2 series I'm working on.
I'll go ahead and pull them up now.
Yes.
It's going to start with Marianne's, and I'll scan through those really fast. And then Marianne, we can go back to them. And I like the contrast of your works because they're very different and both unique. But there we go.
Yes, this is 4th volume of 76 Manifestations of American Destiny. Me trying to tackle American history and the ghosts that don't die. And this is starting off with the Kennedys, moving through different presidents, Lyndon B. Johnson, moving on to the present, and it's about 30 feet long. This is an idea to give how long it fills out to be. And then next slide. This is the middle of the book. And this is showing the rule of history, and that's showing the cover of the book, where it says 76 Manifestations. That's the cover. The other ones are the wrap-in inside covers and a back cover. And so it's folded, it's about 22 inches by 14 inches, and folded out, it's 30 feet. Next slide. Just the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse there. And John Brown, Joan of Arc, Death, and Malcolm X, friggin' injustice there. And MLK is on the behemoth to the right. And silkscreen 4 colors. And what I did is during COVID, I was in the country teaching on Zoom. And so I couldn't do silk screen. So I've worked on the separations, got all the separations ready, and then printed that book this summer. That's what I've done for the past year or so. Also made pins to go along with it, and also had a show of other stuff. In this series, I'm doing with American history, playing off of Yoshi Toshi's 100 Aspects of the Moon, a Japanese artist from the ukiyo-e period. And he had a history of Japan and 100 prints. And I wanted to do a history of America and 76 prints. Next slide. There's more of the pages. That's from Camelot, to then the assassination.
That's Kennedy.
Yeah. So in this, is it just moving basically chronologically?
It's moving kind of randomly, just
Okay.
as the whim takes me, but kind of chronologically.
And that is the only, I think those were the only slides that I have. So
you get-
how does your process start? Do you come up with the concept and you just start drawing it out, and then how?
What I did was, when I wanted to do the project, I made a bunch of drawings just to see if I could do at least 76 or maybe 100 aspects of history. So I started with very rough drawings and made sure I had enough material. And then I started making the drawings bigger, pinned it down what would go in each book. And other books were like, one book was Mythic Heroes, Mythic Villains. Another book was From the Gilded Age to the Gilded Age. That was about financial collapse. So each book kind of has a theme. This one is about racism and about just that long history in America. And it's called Tree of Liberty. And the other series I'm working on is Belfast, which is about Irish history and about my personal stuff, and that relates to the book and the show, Aging with Innocence. And it's a 19-chapter novel in parts, graphic novel in parts. I guess there's no images of it, so I just have to mention it.
Yeah. And you know what, we can link those later as well. So Marianne, I'm going to go back to this that you were showing us. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
You got up Sunday baseball. You want the other one? The
Sure.
other person with this.
There we go.
Okay. I do the covers as well. They're painted with a suspension of acrylic paints in methyl cellulose solution, which I mix up and, divide it into containers and paint whole sheets. For Sue's book, I used a lot of bright colors. Every book was different. I didn't have any specific order. And I tried to put the whole poem on one page. I hate to break up words. And so that made the book very tall, but you can see they're very long. I did all the illustrations that are in the book. They're not necessarily about the poem, but about the feeling of what was going on in the South. This was a summer she spent writing about Faulkner with a group of artists, writers over in South Carolina. And they all gathered in Mississippi, in Oxford, and then she wrote the pieces for this. She didn't write it for this book. I approached her after she had written this book with the idea of publishing it, and she was delighted to have me come and do this for her. And I said, "Well, I'm very slow," and it took me about 2 years to work from start to finish on the book, and it reads just fabulously. I can't tell you how much a joy it was to read. Poets have a way of getting to you when you read them, and I read them over and over and over, so that they become embedded in my soul as I'm working on them. And from that, I developed the art. This particular piece, they went to Faulkner Cemetery, and I particularly pulled out the Marianne and child from a Russian cemetery over in Western Alabama. I took the photograph and then I brought it back and did some Eskimic writing in a background, and then I sent it off and had plates made from that, and then printed it on my print with a Vandercut press. I don't know, are there some more in there that you wanted me to discuss?
Well, there's the book that you had showed us earlier. You
Yeah,
can
yeah.
see it a little
There's
bit more.
drawing as well as threads that interlock and go in and out from page to page.
You know, one thing I think that's in contrast to one another's work is that Marianne, your work is it feels very improvisational and
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
and intuitional. And then David, yours seems like very plotted out, and it's not necessarily that there's more thought that's going into it, but I can just see the differences in your process, even from printing and making the books.
Mhm.
Yeah, I ended up, when I was UAB, I got a math minor. So I used that for my planning and my measuring.
Yeah.
So I
But
have a lot of
I can
planning.
tell that the influence of having time in Alabama, for sure. I can see that in your stories.
Right.
Well, printing a book has made me think more about the order of things, and you're dealing with another person that you're working with.
Right.
So, you know, I have to put a lot more thought and organization into a book that someone else
Right.
has done something and I'm responding to it. And I thoroughly enjoy it though.
Yeah, I realized that my love of printmaking came from liking comics as a kid, just liking ink on paper. So I ended up liking making separations any which way, from handmade separations to get the computer, to printing silkscreen, printing litho, printing etching, printing reso. So I've tried all the different methods. And what I find about a book is like it's complete. Making a book is as complete as having a gallery show, because you have to think of all the aspects from beginning to end, from the cover to the end papers. So you have to do the complete planning and finishing. So it's very much taking the audience through the book. It's like taking an audience through a gallery show.
Right. That's interesting. I like that.
David, I want to ask, is in the shot that you've got here, is that going to be a folio, one folio? Is it a?
What it is I've set it up that you can fold it out 4 pages at a time. So you can look at it without this long table. But if you have the space, you can spread it out to be 30 feet long. Look at it that way. So part of it is the unfolding, 4 pages that opposite each other. Like that's one way to read it. So there's many ways of reading it.
Okay.
And that's kind of like, that's where the improv comes in. It's just how I can play one image off the other, and how I like set the drawings out and see what's missing, what I need to add. So it does grow along as it moves along.
Yeah, yeah. I love your colors. Oh, really?
Thanks. That's the fun part, is changing the
Oh,
color
yeah.
just subtly enough as I move along through it.
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
Thanks.
So the top piece that we're looking at here, which is at the
That's
middle.
red fabric on the book board. That's the cover.
Okay. Okay.
So that folds
up nicely in there.
in 4 spots.
Okay.
I want to hold that book.
Yeah, it was fun printing this gold and white on the red fabric. It's really great.
So what are your plans for this book here in the future? You know, how many do you print, and where do they all end up? Do they end up in libraries or
Mostly libraries.
collections?
Like this is Stanford has bought it, Yale, not this one, the first 3 volumes have sold to Yale, Harvard, the Getty.
Wow.
But now the thing is, will they get another one, or is one enough? NYU so far has gotten 1 copy of each one. So it goes to some places.
Wow.
But mostly also try to keep it that it's a edition of 20 with a set of 5 prints that are individual. So I can sell individual prints from that set of 5. So to make it accessible. And that's part of why I'm doing the Rezo books as well, because they're affordable. Because I like the idea of printmaking, making stuff accessible to a wider audience. But I found these big books, they kind of got ridiculous in being so big and so expensive.
Yeah.
But the work that goes into it requires it.
So how long, and I apologize if you said this when you were talking about it initially, but about how long does something like this take you from the beginning, from conception to completion?
The first sketches for the whole project were started in somewhere like about 2002.
Ooh.
Actually 2012. Getting wrong. I had a grant to work at the library in New York, and I spent most of my time in the print room looking at prints. So that was a great experience, and so I started mocking this up at that point. I think I had that grant, I think in 2011, so I probably started these sketches 2011, 2012, and then slowly built up, and then did the first volume in 2013. I got a Guggenheim grant for that, and then started the other volumes. Then in between, I'm making paintings and having shows and teaching.
Yeah.
And get my son through college, stuff like that.
Well, I'm impressed with both of your works, and David, I'm curious. I know, so you moved to the Birmingham area or rural Alabama when you were pretty young. Oh, I'm so sorry, my phone is ringing. Sorry.
I moved when I was 15.
Okay.
And so I went to high school, and they said after about a month, they said, "You've got enough credits to graduate. We'll put you in I was in 10th grade for 2 weeks, 11th grade for a month, and then 12th grade after that." And so I graduated when I was 16. And I was in the Honor Society, but didn't know till I graduated that I was in there. And most of the time I spent my time drawing bulldogs for the football team to crash through.
Oh,
across for beauty pageants.
yeah. Oh, cool. So how was that? I know Paul, whenever he was, mentioning you and your work and your history, he talked about kind of the civil unrest that you left in Ireland and then sort of found again in Alabama.
Well, luckily not at first. I was in the country, and so I was used to Alabama in a way because my dad was from there. We'd always gotten letters from our aunts and uncles with photos of big cars, boats. So America looked like really appealing. But what was to end up in the country with like no way of getting out and getting anywhere because I wasn't old enough to drive. Like was a little bit of a culture shock.
I bet. Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, everyone, I'm going to open up questions. Are you okay with me opening up the Q&A? Paul said he loves both of the humor in your work and both of your works. And I agree. And it's totally, there's definitely different types of humor happening, but it's certainly there. Let me see. I need to just open up this Q&A because I see there's someone else. William Burley says hi. Let me just answer that. Yeah. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to send them in and we can just continue to chat. Marianne, why don't you I didn't give you a proper introduction, and I don't think you really, I know David told us a little bit about himself and his career, but how did you get into book arts and just tell us about how your career began, if you don't mind.
I had rented a studio downtown Birmingham after I graduated from college, and this is my second career. At first, I was a registered nurse and worked in coronary care at St. Vincent's in Birmingham when I first moved to Birmingham, and that was in '66. And I started to college again and decided to major in Spanish and art. And after graduation, which took me a long time because I had a family, and at that point, after I finished, Sarah Armstrong was in New York well, I think she'd moved to New York then. Anyway, I got a studio in upstairs along with Ann Smith. I shared the print room for a couple of years there before I decided to go on my own and started looking around Alabama and found a space, an old building that was absolutely, I wouldn't buy it again if I didn't really have a lot of energy. So it took me 2 years to get it in the dry and renovated. And of course, I made art throughout that period of time, and with guys working on the roof, pointing bricks and that kind of thing. But I had my first show with Sally Johnson and Ann Benton, and we traveled it around the South, and it was quite different than I had to arrange all the shows, North Carolina, Virginia, and we toured around, and that was my first experience with actually having art out there in the real world. But I had to work on a body of work, and I still wasn't doing books, but I had discovered them. That was the main thing. It's this discovery period. And that was up at Richmond when the College Art Association had a meeting up there, and I went up to it, and they were taking down a book show, and that's when I first saw the first books I have ever seen, and it blew my mind. I thought, oh, this is the medium in which I want to put everything. Mm-hmm. And it was a while. I had to go to the Center for the Book of Art in New York. I went to Visual Studies Workshop in Rochester. I went back to New York to the center for several times. And Tim Ely was one of the first people that really showed me how to get those pages together and make it look like a book. And then I went from there. And the crazy thing is, I was so naive when I went to New York and visited with Tim and worked in his studio. He and his wife invited me to a poetry reading. I'd never been to a poetry reading before in my life. I just thought, oh, this is just too much. I'm getting to go to a poetry reading. What do you do at a poetry reading? But anyway, I've been to a lot of poetry readings since then, and have just embraced poetry to the hilt and love it. So that's how I got started, just falling in love with the medium and following all kinds of leads. It wasn't that easy. Book arts has grown as far as all over the country, all over the world, really. And the computer has helped do that. You can see it now. At that time, I was so hungry to see books and what people could do with them. And finally, I just let it go and did my own thing. And after about 20 years, I decided to go back to the University of Alabama. I wasn't going back. I went to the University of Alabama and enrolled in their program.
Yeah, and they have a wonderful book arts program.
Yeah, you learn a lot.
So I have a question for both of you. When you show book arts and exhibitions, are people allowed to handle the books in some way to see the full work?
Yes. I've made special gloves sometimes, but yeah, they can handle it as long as they're careful.
The same.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I feel like it's got to be a hard medium to really display because you can't touch art in galleries and museums normally. But I thought it was interesting what you said, David, how you're looking at it as almost like a gallery show, the way that you're laying it out. And I haven't thought of it like that before, but it makes sense. But I think, when they hear book arts, they don't understand. I think they really are taking it quite literally and not understanding, printing and the illustrations. And so that's why we really wanted to highlight the books, and we were glad that we had them in the exhibit, so we could, share that with people.
Right.
but we're still taking questions if anyone has them. We'll be taking them for at least another 5 minutes. Oh, here's one. Okay, you both showed at Space 111 in Birmingham. Were you both creating books at the beginning of your careers in art, or did you start in other media and eventually gravitate towards books?
I started in printmaking, so I said that was a big part of what I was doing. And then I realized I was making prints, like why not make series of prints? And then once I had that, it's like, wait a minute, I have a book. It's a book. And then one of my first books was for a show that I had in Birmingham, Land of a Thousand Bears at Space 111. And so I decided to make a book it was about a road trip through America, like a purgatory, neither good nor bad. So I wanted to make a book, the travel guide that went with it. That was my first book. And I made handmade separations for 4-color process offset, and had a great Italian-American guy in New York that I worked with that just pushed me to say, get more separations done. I'm not busy here. Give me some work to do. So that was a great process.
This is from that show.
That's from that show. Yeah, it was a placemat. I like the idea of making it look like the place was kind of real by making placemats. And then for another show, I made shot glasses and banners, all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah, that is so cool. Yeah,
I love ephemera.
Holly, I can give you one of these. I have a lot of days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've just found them.
Send them to the
I
museum.
remember Diane had given me these. This is Pam Freeman's.
I also laminated some of them if you want to preserve it.
Yeah.
And actually, one similarity I have with Marianne is that my books were prodded along by poet friends. So I ended up in the collection at NYU because of poet friends that I did illustrations for that got me in the collection.
Yeah.
So I have a soft spot for poets.
Yeah.
And Marianne, a lot of your work is, they're all mostly unique books, right? So you're not making a lot of editions, or do you have any books that have multiple editions?
I did about 5 or 6 letterpress printed books back in between 2000 and 2010. I'm not seeing very well now. I've lost losing sight in one of my eyes, and so my type is 10 point, which is very tiny, and I doubt, I won't say I won't, I doubt I'll be setting any type. I could probably get someone to set it for me with linotype. There is someone that can do that, but I don't know. I'm into exploring other medium right now, and we'll probably pursue a lot of different things like that along with.
What about you, David? That's a good point. Do you ever see yourself working in any other mediums?
I did. I went to Cuba and made lino cuts.
Okay.
Place there. And then I got invited to Kansas, where I made a print that was half litho, half silkscreen.
Yeah.
Got invited to Middlebury College, and made a print silkscreen in the center and etchings all around it. So yeah, when I get the chance, I mean, I end up doing silkscreen mostly because I can get in and out of the print lab at SVA quickly. I was doing litho, it would take forever. I have time for painting.
So someone says, please make another set of shot glasses.
Yeah, I gotta find a shot glass printer. The only ones I found want to print it that tiny instead of bigger the way I had it. So I find one. Also, I've designed some beer cans recently for a brewery up in the Catskills.
Ah.
Keep your eyes open for those. Actually, I'll show you one.
Yeah, let's see.
Shot glasses.
Oh,
I love it.
want to try it. That's really cool.
Upper Brewing.
Sometimes I just purchase beer if it has a cool label. So I'm gonna be on the look. Okay. One question is, what, if any, artists are your inspiration for your work / process?
Big influence on me is H.C. Westerman, because I love his sculptures, but what I really like are his drawings and his woodcut prints as lithographs. So when I did Land of a Thousand Beers, it was an homage to H.C. Westerman, his See America First series of prints. And then for 76 Memphis Stations, Yoshitoshi's woodcut prints are a big inspiration.
Yeah, I heard you mention that one.
And Jim Nutt, his etchings, like William Kentridge's prints as well. Gustin's lithos, Peter Saul's prints.
We got a list.
I love them.
And Marianne?
Oh, that's hard to say. Behind me is one of my big drawings that belongs to Pam. I did a whole series of those, and I still like to draw these people and animals and grid it up. And but I don't know that I will say I spent time in Mexico, and I was just blown away by the way they approached the human figure and ideas. And I loved it. I loved it. And I don't know whether that shows through in my work or not, particularly the other work. I love to work with pencils. I mean, I can spend days just sitting. I've got a chair now, and all through COVID, I sat in that chair and drew, and not just abstractions, but actual figures, and distorted figures. I guess Picasso started a lot of that, this distortion of the figure. And when I was in Spain, I spent a month there in '97, and I actually got to see Guernica, and it's the Spanish don't mind outlining and making the figure a drawn figure.
Mhm.
I mean, it's it's a drawing. And I love that. I love coloring behind the black line. And I was also, as a child, I traded funny books, and that was probably the only printed matter. This was back in the 40s, the only printed matter I ever got to see.
What is a funny book?
Comic books.
Comic book.
Oh,
We called them funny books.
okay. I've never heard that expression. Okay.
I traded comic books in the early 60s. So
Yeah.
same thing, went around from door to door, traded my comic books.
Yep.
And the first collage I ever saw was by Jack Kirby and Fantastic Four. And that impressed me a lot at that time.
I think comic books, funny books, were probably an early influence in what I like to do. There was a guy down the street from where I lived in Smithfield, North Carolina, and he had the best collection of books. And you could trade. They cost 10 cents a piece.
Mm-hmm.
And you could build up enough to make a good trade with him. I couldn't read, but I read visually.
Right.
It was much easier to read visually. You knew what was going on.
So another question is, what do you hope / wish for emerging book artist?
Something I haven't seen before. Some visually exciting. I end up getting, there's a lot of, I've got a lot of friends in Europe that are in between printmaking and comic books. Fun stuff coming out of there. And there's a great store in New York called Desert Island, which has a lot of European books in it. It's worth checking out if you're here.
Yeah.
And Print Matter is a great store for books as well, artist books. It's always new stuff on the horizon.
And then, okay, so we have to talk about John. So I know you both have your own unique connections to John. So if you don't mind, since he couldn't be here with us tonight, maybe, he was going to be a big part of the conversation. And so if there's anything, I mean, how did you connect with him? How has he contributed to your careers? If you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I met John through Sarah Armstrong and through Ann Airdsmith. And I think he might have still been at UAB at that point. And then he ended up starting a gallery called Agnes. in Birmingham, and I showed there one time. And so I've known him since then. And it seems like a good fan of the arts. It's an important thing to have.
Well, I met John. He came to me and asked, he had just opened his gallery, Agnes, which he named for his grandmother. And he wanted connections with the book arts world. And I was getting ready to do, I curated a show for Space 111 back in the 90s. And I happened to go out to Kansas City to a show, I think it was a meeting, I don't remember what, but anyway, they had a show out there and I was able to invite all the artists from that show in Kansas City with people that I knew in Alabama and from other sources to participate in the show at Space 111. That was their first book art show. And then so John asked me to give him contacts, which I did, different friends at Agnes. And that was the first book arts gallery that we had in Birmingham at that time. And he showed it along with photography. And he went from there. Someone wanted the space later on. He went to a house somewhere in south side of Birmingham. And I went over and did a talk over there. But John has always been in contact with me throughout the years.
Yeah, and he also has work in the show as well at the museum. But I think we're have answered all the questions, and again, thanks so much for being here. I can tell you both are very excited about the work that you do, and that's inspiring. And I'm glad that you're still, passionate about what you do.
Thanks. Enjoyed it.
All right.
Nice to see you, David.
Very nice to meet you, Marianne.
All right.
Great
Bye,
work.
y'all.
It's fun. Take care.
Have a great
Take
evening.
care.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye, Holly.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Holly.